Every town has its secrets. Every family has its shadows. And sometimes, the most dangerous person in your life is the one you trust the most. I'm Jimmy, and this is The Darkness Revealed. These are real stories, real people, real crimes. Some of them happened far away. Some of them happened right next door. Let's begin. Hubert.
I called her every single day. Every day. We'd talk for hours, me and Geraldine. Didn't matter what about. Didn't matter who about. Just talked. That's what we did. But that day, she didn't answer. I called again. Still nothing. And I knew. I don't know how to explain it. I just knew. Something was wrong. Geraldine always answered.
The Quiet Life on Highway 54, White Cross, North Carolina. A small, unincorporated community in Orange County. The kind of place where everybody knows everybody, where neighbors wave from their porches, where doors sometimes go unlocked, where family is everything. Geraldine Eubanks had lived in this community for years. At 73, she was sharp, independent, and deeply rooted in her neighborhood. She was the kind of woman who spoke her mind, loudly if she had to. The kind of woman who didn't take nonsense from anyone. And every single day, without fail, she would pick up the phone and spend hours talking with her dear friend Hubert. It was their ritual, their connection, until one day, the phone just rang. But before we get to that day, we need to go back to an ordinary morning in May of 1989, when Geraldine walked to her mailbox, just a short walk down her driveway. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. But what was inside that mailbox would set off a chain of events that nobody in White Cross would ever forget. Something is wrong with the numbers. It was her monthly bank statement. She sat down, opened it, and started reading. And then she stopped. The balance wasn't right, not even close. Several $1,000s were missing from her account. Geraldine Eubanks did not panic. She did not cry. She picked up the phone, and she let the bank have it. Geraldine called the bank and, in no uncertain terms, demanded to know where her damn money had gone. The bank staff knew her well. They knew she was not a woman to be dismissed. They pulled her records immediately and told her everything looked accurate on their end. That wasn't the answer she was looking for. She told them she was coming down there, right now, to find her money herself. The bank employees pulled every record they had. They were ready and waiting. But Geraldine never walked through that door. She didn't even make it out of the community. Her tire went flat on the way. She was stranded on the side of the road, helpless. Miles from those bank records she was determined to see. So she did what any grandmother would do. She called her grandson, the young man who lived right next door, the one who had always been there when she needed him. She had no idea that he was the reason she was sitting on the side of that road. Investigators would later determine that the flat tire was no accident. Someone had used a valve removal tool to deliberately loosen the valve stem on Geraldine's tire, letting the air bleed out slowly, quietly, just enough to make sure she wouldn't get far. And that tool, that small, damning tool, was later found sitting right there in the driveway, left behind, because he never expected anyone to be looking for it. Think about what that means. This wasn't panic. This wasn't a young man who snapped in the heat of the moment, before Geraldine even hung up the phone with that bank. Her own grandson had already made sure she would never get there. He had planned it. He was ready. And when she called him from the side of that road, he came. Calm, helpful, concerned. The perfect grandson. Now here is a detail that stopped investigators cold. His own father was a tow truck driver. One phone call to his dad and Geraldine's car could have been handled quietly within the family. But he didn't call his father. He called an outside tow truck company instead, because he didn't want his father to know. Didn't want anyone close to him to remember that morning, to remember the flat tire, to remember that Geraldine had been on her way to the bank. He was already erasing the story before it was even written. He brought his grandmother home, back to her mobile home on Highway 54, back behind closed doors, and that was the last time anyone outside would see Geraldine Eubanks alive. Missing. On May 17th, 1989. Geraldine Eubanks' friends began to worry. She wasn't answering her phone. Nobody had seen her. For a woman as vocal and present as Geraldine, that silence was deafening. She was reported missing. At the time, most people assumed there was an innocent explanation. She was elderly. She lived alone. Maybe she had wandered off. Maybe she was confused. A county-wide search began. But there was one person in that community who wasn't confused at all, who knew exactly where Geraldine was, and who had every reason to keep quiet. Investigators began canvassing the area, talking to family, retracing her steps. One of the first people they spoke to was her grandson, Christopher. He told them he had seen her on May 17th, that she seemed fine, that he had no idea where she could be. He seemed cooperative, worried even, like a devoted grandson would be. And standing beside him was his mother, Glenda, Geraldine's own daughter. Lead investigator Royce Tripp entered Geraldine's mobile home. Now, this is important to understand. Royce Tripp wasn't a stranger walking into an unfamiliar house. He knew this family. He knew Geraldine personally. He had known them for years, the way people know each other in small communities. By name, by face, by habit. So when he stepped through that door, he wasn't just an investigator. He was a man who knew exactly what this home was supposed to look like, and he knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. He saw a stain on the floor, dark, dried. He pointed it out, and Glenda, Geraldine's own daughter, told him not to worry. It was just shoe polish, she said. Geraldine had spilled it herself. Nothing to see there. She said this to a man who knew her mother. Royce Tripp looked at that stain. He kept moving, and then he saw it. Something small, something most people would not have given a second thought. Geraldine's partial dental implant. In the bathroom, on the counter, right there, and because Royce Tripp knew Geraldine, really knew her, he understood in that instant exactly what that meant. That woman did not go anywhere without that implant in her mouth. Not to the mailbox, not to the store, not anywhere. It was as certain as the sun rising. And it was there in plain sight. That was the moment. Right there. That small object, smaller than a coin, was what told Royce Tripp that Geraldine Eubanks was not lost. She was gone. And someone in that room knew exactly where she was. Royce Tripp suspected foul play from that very moment. But there was something else working against him in those early hours. Something that would later raise serious questions. Glenda, it was said, had a relationship with the county sheriff. A close one. Now, that is unconfirmed. That is the kind of thing people say in small towns, but keep that in the back of your mind, because what happened next is not hearsay. What happened next is fact, and it is deeply troubling. On May 20th, a search team found Geraldine's body in a wooded area off Milliken Road, 5 miles from her home. She had been left there. No clothes and alone. The medical examiner determined she had likely been killed on May 15th or 16th, days before she was even reported missing. 1 or more severe blows to the head. She never had a chance. Investigators returned to her home with new urgency. More bloodstains. Evidence she had been killed right there in her own mobile home on Highway 54. And then they found blood somewhere else. In the truck. Her grandson's truck. The same young man who had conveniently come to help her the day she got a flat tire. The same young man who told investigators he'd last seen her on May 17th. A date the medical examiner had already ruled impossible. He had lied. There was blood in the bed of his truck. His grandmother was dead, and investigators brought him in for questioning. And then they let him go home for the night. They let him go home. Think about that. Blood evidence in his truck. A grandmother missing and now found dead. A timeline he had already lied about. In virtually any other investigation, that young man does not walk out that door. But Christopher Tilley did. He went home. And whether that decision was procedural, political, or something else entirely, we will never know for certain. What we do know is what happened next. The following morning, Christopher Tilley was gone. The truth about the money. His name was Christopher Neil Tilley, 20 years old. By all accounts, a young man with a good reputation, the kind of kid people in a small community root for. He had recently started his own automobile repair shop, right there on Highway 54, right next door to his grandmother's home. He was building something, a business, a future, and to everyone around him, it looked like he was doing it the right way. But investigators now believe that business, that shop sitting just yards from Geraldine's front door, may have been partly funded by the woman next door, his own grandmother, without her knowledge, without her consent. Blank checks stolen from her home, forged in her name, cashed, thousands of dollars quietly drained from the account of a 73-year-old woman who had trusted him with her life, who had probably watched that shop go up and felt proud of him, her grandson, building something. And there is something else investigators uncovered. Something that adds yet another dimension to this story. Geraldine Eubanks had money. She had land, which, as her family, both Christopher, Glenda, and his older brother may benefit from if she were to pass. Whether the stolen checks were meant to tide him over, or whether something larger was in motion, we may never know. Because Christopher Tilley never stood in a courtroom, and Glenda nor his older brother were ever charged or implicated. Those questions, like so many in this case, died on a highway outside of Cary. What we do know is this: when Geraldine opened that bank statement, when she called the bank demanding answers, when she announced she was going down there herself, her own grandson knew his time was running out. The young man with the good reputation, the hard-working kid just starting out. He had everything to lose, and he made a decision that morning that no one in White Cross would have ever believed him capable of. Evidence suggests that Geraldine was lying on her couch when Christopher Tilley struck her in the head with a baseball bat. He then wrapped her body, loaded her into the back of his truck, drove 5 miles down the road, and left her in the woods, unclothed, alone, his own grandmother, as if she had never existed. The chase. On May 21st, the day after Geraldine's body was found, and the blood stains were discovered in his truck, Christopher Tilley was questioned by investigators. And then, at 8:30 in the morning, he vanished. He took his girlfriend's red Nissan 300ZX, armed himself with 2 pistols, a .38 caliber Browning semi-automatic and a .44 caliber Smith & Wesson, and disappeared. What followed was a 6-day manhunt spanning 3 states: North Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee. Warrants for his arrest were issued on May 22nd. Investigators tracked him to a Holiday Inn in Boone, North Carolina. But by the time they got there, he was already gone. He surfaced next on the Virginia side of Lake Gaston, having broken into a trailer and spent the night. When the owner arrived and spotted him, Tilley ran. The owner called it in, and the net began to close. He was spotted driving the red Nissan in Durham County. A deputy gave chase along US Highway 70, lost him briefly, but a highway patrol trooper picked him up again on Interstate 40. The chase stretched across highways, burning through miles, until finally, on US Highway 1 outside of Cary, North Carolina, it ended. Tilley struck 2 other cars. He pulled off the highway and drove into a wooded area, and there, alone in the trees, he turned the .38 Browning on himself. He was rushed to Wake Medical Center in Raleigh. He died 5 hours later. He was 20 years old. In the aftermath, investigators searched Christopher Tilley's automobile shop. Inside the wood stove, they found the charred remnants of bank statements belonging to Geraldine Eubanks, and her purse burned. He had tried to destroy the evidence of what he had done to his own grandmother, but it wasn't enough. Bank records were subpoenaed. The picture became undeniable. Blank checks stolen, forged, cashed. Thousands of dollars taken from the woman who had raised his family. A woman who had simply walked to her mailbox one morning and found out the truth. Orange County Sheriff Lindy Pendergraph confirmed what the evidence had already shown. Christopher Tilley had acted alone. Geraldine Eubanks had been killed by someone she loved, someone she called family, someone who had grown up in her shadow, someone who had sabotaged her car, burned her purse, forged her checks, and then, when she got too close to the truth, taken her life. The evidence was overwhelming. The tire tool in the driveway, the blood in the truck, the burned bank statements in the wood stove, the forged checks. In a courtroom, it would have been a devastating case, but there was never a courtroom. There was never a trial. Christopher Tilley made sure of that when he pulled that trigger on Highway 1. He robbed Geraldine of her life. And then he robbed her family of ever hearing the word guilty.
I still think about her every day. She was one of a kind, Geraldine. Tough as nails. Wouldn't take nothing from nobody. I'd known her grandson since he was a boy. That's the part I still can't make sense of. She didn't deserve what happened to her. Nobody does.
Geraldine Eubanks was laid to rest as her community mourned. She was a strong woman, a vocal woman, a grandmother who was killed precisely because she refused to be silent. She found those numbers. She made that call. She was on her way to that bank, and the person who couldn't let that happen was someone she had loved her entire life. She deserved better. She deserved justice, and even without a trial. The Tilley family maintains Chris's innocence. We can make sure she is never forgotten. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, thank you for coming back. These stories matter. The people in them matter. And as long as we keep telling them, they're never truly forgotten. Until next time, this is The Darkness Revealed.